Hey, it's Laura with Following the Paper Trail, and I have a new binding. I know, big surprise. um, so, I am calling this binding XYZ binding, and the reason for that is the main elements of it form. Here's the first one, as you can see, there's an X. Another one is a Y. And we got our Z. And these are all pieces and parts of this binding. I want to show you in an album that I have underway right now how it works, and then I'll show you how to put it all together. With this binding, let's go from the top up here. I've used these little, yeah, it's really hard to see on here. I've used these little triangular tubes on a couple of other bindings in the last couple of years, but I think I've really refined it now to where I really like how this one is working. So those bindings form kind of a spine, and then the pages, this is a new album that I'm going to have available here in the next day or two. But with this binding, it allows you to attach the pages, whether you want the binding element to be on the outside, or it can be on the inside of a sleeve type page. So if you like to do sleeve pages, it can flip over. If you like pages, maybe they're made out of chipboard or something like that, then yours can be on the outside, or in this case, I wanted it visually on the outside. You can also add in extra pages like this one, where I have had it slide up inside, but these can be added between other pages. But this just works really nice and clean method for doing this binding. So to start with, we make the number of these little triangular tubes that become both the base for the binding. It can almost create a spine, and I'll show you that here, how you can do this even onto like a canvas or something. So they can form not only what the binding attaches to, but it adds some structure. I have one other album that uses these to where these pieces are actually what are attached to the front and back of the album. And then these pieces here are actually the back side of these guys. So you could have these open gaps, and I have some accent tape on those. So you can actually have a relatively open back because the strength of these triangular pieces acts as a structure, so you don't have to actually have a chipboard spine the full height of your album. So with these triangular pieces, or what did I call them in excuse me, I think I called them binding bars. With the bars, you make them whatever height you need them to go with for your pages, whether you like them to be a little bit longer than your pages or the same height as your pages. Either way is just fine. So to create these, you're going to cut, here I've used lightweight chipboard. I've also used heavyweight cardstock for these as well. So either one will work. It just needs to be a little bit heavier than just a standard cardstock. So you want lightweight chipboard or about 110 weight for cardstock. Now these, excuse me, are cut 1 3/4 inch wide. No matter what height you make them, they're always 1 3/4 inch wide. And you're going to score a 1/2 inch, a 3/8, a 3/8, and a 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch on each edge, 2 3/8 in the middle. You're going to then fold at those score lines, and then I've just put some tape on here. You can glue, whichever works better for you. And then we're going to bring these together like so to form our binding bar. I've been doing no more than 5 because I like the width of that. You can do any number, whether you want an even or an odd number. It really doesn't matter. It just all comes down to how wide you want your binding to be. These are at the base a little more than ½ inch. So, excuse me, I like to keep my bindings under 3 inches. So I tend to seem to like just 5 of these. These then have the X, Y, and Z elements that I showed you, and they're easier to see in the white, then get attached to them. For instance, this is the Y element. The Y allows for a sleeve style page, which I've been doing for 11 years now, can slide over the fin. It has 2 narrower sections that form the Y part that then attach or piggyback onto the binding bar. And you can glue those on. You can use heavy duty adhesive like score tape or something such like to attach this. And then this gives you a fin to attach your page to. It also gives it some height when you have all of these thick and heavy interactive pages like we have these days. So giving it some height off of the actual spine gives it a little bit more flexibility. So the Y-shaped one then becomes not dissimilar from Stack the Deck in that you have a fin to attach to. The X version is done very similar. It's got a narrower section down here that attaches to my binding bar and the wider section that attaches sandwiching a page in between. So those narrower ones attach onto the binding bar, and then our page will sandwich inside of our X. Now the Z is used to attach to the bottom side of one of our binding bars. Excuse me. That allows this to kind of hinge and flex in between 2 others, so you can add a page in between, because as you can see with my binding bars, my apex or points where our pages attach of these binding bars are around ½ inch apart. So by putting one of these in between, you still have ¼ inch between pages. Now I don't put these between every page. I put like 2 of them in, because what I many times use those for as a pocket that I put a journal signature into, because a lot of what I'm doing these days I call photo journals. They're both a journal and a photo album, or they can be just a journal, or they can be just an album. But that's kind of what I'm into right now, is these combination journals and photo albums. So this allows you to add an extra piece. You don't have to use the Z piece. You can do it entirely with X, entirely with Y, or a combination of those. So here it is with, here's the Y one attached onto my binding bar. Here's an X one attached on to the binding bar. So let's go ahead and make those pieces. Make sure I've got the right ones here. All right, so with both the X and the Y, you need the exact same pieces. You're going to cut for each one 2 strips that are 3/4 inch wide, and you're going to score it at 1/4 inch from one edge. You'll have a ½ inch and 1/4 inch. And you're going to need 2 of those, whether you're doing X or Y. So for the Y version, which is the simple where your fin hides up inside the page, we are going to do that one, excuse me, with, you can do this with either glue or tape. It's just faster on camera to do this with the tape. So we're going to attach the 2 wider sections together, lining up that top edge So if you prefer glue, you can do this with glue. So there you see it forms a Y. This narrower section is going to sandwich over the apex of my binding bar. And you're going to either glue or, I tend to glue those down, but that's how that one's going to attach. Now with the X version, using those same pieces, you're going to need to add another element to that. Now here I've done it with cardstock, but I'm also going to show you how you can also do it with hockey stick tape or fabric tape. As many of you who've been around for a while know, I've been using hockey tape for several years now in many of my bindings. It's inexpensive, comes in multiple widths, it's easy to get a hold of, whether you want to order it online excuse me, or you have access to hockey stores. But it's really easy to get. It's super sticky, and it's super tough because it's used in hockey. So, but what we're going to have is our two pieces that are going to form the fins and the attachment to our binding bar. And then we're going to have a third piece, whether it's out of cardstock or it's out of tape, that's going to attach in between to form a V. I'm not going to attach this one down because I really want to demonstrate actually attaching it down with the tape. But if I attach this to where then it has two fin parts, so it's got your bottom skinny part that's going to attach to my binding bar, and then it's got these two top parts. This forms the upper part of the X. So you'll attach that together, and then your page can sandwich in between. Now, the way I've been doing it a lot is with my hockey tape. So if I'm going to fold that skinny part kind of out of the way because I don't want to get the tape onto it. So I'm going to cut a piece the right length. And this comes in white, black, all sorts of different colors. I mainly just keep white and black. The white, you can paint it, color it however you want to. I'm using white on the black for this case, just so that you can see it. I'm going to line the edge of my tape up with the edge of that wider section of this binding strip. I'll trim off the excess. And then right away, so that I don't get a bunch of cat and dog hair in it, I'm going to take the other piece. Again, the wider section, I'm going to attach down. I'm going to line up the folds so that they're just touching each other, like so. Got a little boo-boo there, but nobody will ever know it's there but you and I. All right, so then this can fold. It makes it really strong, really nice and flexible. This part still attaches. The narrower part attaches to my binding bar. This still can form around my page. I just like using the fabric tape or hockey stick tape, and that's all you need to look for. You can even Google on like Amazon for hockey stick tape. This is 1 inch wide. It's really super versatile. You can look, I have several, over the last couple of years, I've used it on several different bindings and assorted things because it's just amazing stuff. So now, once you have these all made, if you want to round corners or that sort of thing, you absolutely can. Now, I have another option for these X or even the Ys for that matter, where I've taken and created them out of, see how this is flexible? Because this is out of canvas. It comes in a pad, and you can actually print it. I print my digital paper onto this canvas so that it coordinates with my papers. And it's canvas, so it's super strong. It's not going to tear. For those of you who, I don't know what you do with your bindings where you've had your cardstock tear, but it's super strong. I again use my tape to hold it together, but because this is out of a fabric, it's super flexible. But as I showed in this one, I printed my paper onto this canvas. I want to show you another one that I got. I've got it coming up where. So here I've just taken one of my papers, my digital papers, and I printed it using my inkjet printer onto this canvas. Now, the one that I have here is one that comes from Hobby Lobby, but other manufacturers make it. It's a canvas wet media. So it's very much like if you got a stretch canvas, the canvas is on a stretch canvas. So it's all gessoed and ready to go. However, it's not attached to anything. So it is fabric. Now, when you go to look for this, make sure you're not getting canvas paper. Canvas paper is actually paper, but impressed with a canvas texture. So you want to make sure you're getting an actual canvas, a pad of canvas fabric. So as I said, they have this at Hobby Lobby, but I've also looked on Amazon, and there are other paper manufacturers that have canvas in a pad, which is what this is. So it's actual fabric. I have run this through 2 different inkjet printers without any issues. It is 9 by 12, so I did have to cut it down to 8.5 by 11. But the beauty is you can also cut it with your regular paper cutter. And that's what's really, I find really cool about it. So here, this is canvas. You could even make pages out of this. You could take a sheet of it and paint it the way you want it. But see, it just cuts right with my paper cutter. So it's cool stuff. And that's what I mainly have been using rather than out of the cardstock. I have been using these canvas pieces. You can make this into a Y-shaped one as well, so that it then attaches to my binding bar. And if you attach these 2 fins together, that can slip up inside your page. The other thing I did want to show you is if I wanted to do a canvas spine and not necessarily a chipboard spine, I can attach these bars to canvas as well. If you want to do it on chipboard, you'd be applying it the exact same way. I'm doing this with score tape just because it's faster for on screen. So I'm going to center this. So that attaches. Now I have 2 of these also with my extra page. So if I want those to be between the 2 outermost pages, or I can turn them around and have them on each side of the center spin, but I'm going to have them be to the outside. Now, did I give you the dimension? I don't know if I gave you the dimension for the Z. The Z is 1.25 inches wide. So 1.25 inches. So it's got a 1/2 inch, 3/8, and 3/8. So these are always going to be 1.25 inches. The 1/2 inch is what's going to attach to the page. The 3/8 is to give it that height. So it's the same height as then these, the binding bars. And then the 3/8 is what it gets attached to the underside. And when you attach it to the underside, you want to make sure it's not too tight so that it can bend freely. So it's not going to go all the way across because it's only 3/8 of an inch and this is 1/2. But that was intentional. So when you attach that. Now, if you also want this to be the X shape to sandwich around your page with your X piece or your Z piece, you can cut a second piece that has only 1 3/8 inch leg. So it's 1/2 inch and 3/8, and that's going to attach those 2 3/8 sections, or the middle section is going to attach. So you still have your loose one that's just going to go under the binding bar, and you have the upper X part that sandwiches around your page. You can add this extra piece to make this a X piece after you've already attached it to your binding bar. So, but that's only if you want to add those extra pages in there. That's totally optional. You don't need to use the Z piece. The Z piece is definitely optional. Now, when I go to attach this guy down, I want to get him nice and cozy up against my extra piece that's in between. And then attach this last one. You can also add pattern paper to these binding bars. You can add accent tape like I did on that one I showed you early on. But see, then this gives you a flexible spine to a certain extent. It flexes this way, definitely flexes this way. You can attach your chipboard front and back to these pieces, but it gives it a little bit more flexibility, but it's super stable, especially this way. These triangles aren't going to bend. I remember way back when I was a freshman in college, just starting out in my architectural school, and we were given a 12 by 12 piece of chipboard, of lightweight chipboard, and we had to kind of encase the greatest amount of space with that. No, we had 2 sheets, with those 2 sheets of the lightweight chipboard. And I remember making these little bars like this, tiny little ones, because they're super strong and they won't flex and bend. So I was actually in one of the top 3 people that was able to enclose the greatest amount of space with those 2 pieces of chipboard by using little elements like this. And so they're super strong. They're kind of like beams. But that's then how you attach it. Here I've attached it to canvas. You would do the exact same thing, attaching this to a chipboard base. So I just want to do a super quick review and go over the dimensions one more time. For our binding bars, you're going to cut these 1 3/4 inches. And you're going to have a 1/2 inch, a 3/8, a 3/8, and a 1/2 inch. And you need 1 binding bar for all of your primary pages. You can then do an X binding or a Y binding. The Y binding, you're cutting 2 3/4 inch pieces with a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch, and you're going to attach the 2 1/2 inch pieces together to form a Y. For your X binding piece, you're going to do the same thing. 2 3/4 inch strips, a 1/2 inch and a 1/4. You're going to then attach the 2 1/2 inch pieces together, either with a piece of cardstock that's 1 inch wide with a 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, or a fabric tape like I did here that's 1 inch wide, and you're going to apply it to where it touches both of those 1/2 inch sides. You fold it back together and it forms an X along with the skinnier side that attaches to your binding bar. For your Z shape, for adding in optional extra pockets or pages, you're going to be cutting this 1 1/4 inches with 1/2 inch, 3/8, and 3/8. The 1/2 inch becomes your fin that your page attaches to. The 3/8 gives it some height, and the other 3/8 attaches underneath one of the binding bars. if you want this piece to be like an X binder strip, you're going to cut one that is 7/8 of an inch wide with a 1/2 inch and a 3/8, and you're going to attach the 3/8 to the middle 3/8 section of the Z, so that the remaining 3/8 can attach underneath your binding bar, and the 1/2 inch section then attaches around your page. Now, one of the things you can do, as you can see on here, even if this were an X or a Y, is you could make each side a different color if you wanted to. So you could make dual colored binding strips. And then the other option is using this primed canvas that comes in a pad, and use that to make your binding. And then you can either paint it with any kind of medium that you want to, or you can print it in your printer. Like I said, I ran it through both an HP and an Epson printer, no problems whatsoever going through the printer. And it's easy to find. You can just Google canvas pad and it comes up. Or again, as I said, I found it at Hobby Lobby. Neither Joann's or Michael's had it in stock, but Hobby Lobby does. So if you have access to that, that's great. Otherwise, you can order it through either Dick Blick or Amazon. So anyway, that's the XYZ binding. You've got binding bars, you've got X, you've got Y, and you've got Z as a way to attach your pages to either a chipboard spine, or, as I showed you on here, to a canvas spine. But I'm having a blast with this. I think it's a really fun, super versatile, easy to use binding for albums. And again, this is a new album that I have coming up that that's going to go into my Advent Tower. But obviously, as you can see, it can be used for pretty much any subject. So here's some of those extra pages that go in between. So I will have this as a video tutorial available, and I'm trying to remember what I called it. I think I'm calling it something like Past Adventures, because Advent Adventure seems, I know, corny, but so Past Adventures is what I think I'm calling it. I'm still working on that. And I don't have my bindings or my covers attached yet, because I did a little extra piece in here, and so they're going to attach to that. And I got to cover them first before I attach them to this piece. But here I've got a hard spine, but I could have also done it with the soft spine. So anyway, fun binding, XYZ. And I hope you enjoy using it, and thanks a bunch.